a lawyer, and you deserve an advocate. Speaking with an attorney is simple and 100% free. We're available 24/7 for your convenience, and we'll take on the claims process so you can rest easy. You deserve an advocate.
This is the Monty Show, the truth in sports talk streaming. When you want unbiased opinions about your favorite team without the spin, all you have to do is find the Monty Show, streaming live and available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on YouTube. And now, here's Monty.
Hey, the Monty Show with you. Happy Monday, February 5th, 2024. As always, we're presented by The Advocates, theadvocates.com, the best injury attorneys in the business, where you never pay a penny to work with the best. And in fact, you guys, as you know, you can chat with an attorney live online, 24/7, 365. That means right now, and it won't cost you a dime. Theadvocates.com. Make sure you tell them you heard about it on the Monty Show. Welcome in. Thrilled that you are here. It's very early. Welcome to Mornings, Jake.
Thank you. Well, it should be welcome back. Welcome back.
No, it shouldn't be, because there's nothing good about getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning. 3:55 as it was today. Nothing. There is nothing good about it, but we're thrilled you're here with us because we have a lot of news to get to today, including this situation with the SEC and the Big Ten exploring their options. And I think this is incredible vagary from the SEC and the Big Ten, and probably as it should be, is the two behemoths of college football. And I think we need to get that out of the way right now. And you don't have to like it, but you better learn to love it, because it is what it is. The SEC and the Big Ten are the two biggest dogs on the block. And what they want, generally, they will get. And as college football leadership comes together this week to make gravitational decisions on the future of revenue sharing in college football, the SEC and the Big Ten, by no accident, have made it clear by doing interviews that they are looking to explore something other than the college football playoff. And I think if I'm the SEC and the Big Ten, Jake, this is about the only way to go about it.
Yeah, I think, when you're the two biggest conferences in college football, you should have a bigger say, over the matter than the smaller conferences. And I think that's really what the Big Ten and the SEC are exploring here, trying to understand, okay, first of all, is the current college football playoff format suitable into the long-term future? Can we make this work in a way where we get what we want and everybody else gets what they want? And I think that's a big-time conversation right now. But I think for the Big Ten and the SEC, the higher priority is making sure that as they grow their conferences, they're getting more distribution out of the college football playoff. Basically saying, okay, if right now we're getting, one slice of the pie for each of our conferences, as we grow, we want to get 2 or 3 slices of the pie in proportion with how big our conference is. And also, by that nature, we are going to take more control over the future of college football. And I think that's the portion that makes people uncomfortable. If you're looking around, if you're the ACC and the Big 12, you're sitting here saying, hey, man, obviously we're not the Big Ten and the SEC, but we're still Power 5 or Power 4 conferences, and we still want to make sure that we have a good say. So it's sort of this power struggle in a sense, but what you're not going to get away from is the fact that the SEC and the Big Ten are the two conferences that win the most. And because they win the most, they make the most money. And those who make the most money typically have the most control. And so if they can't get this figured out, I think the question of what will they create is the one that sort of looms over everybody, because we're in a time in college football where we've seen and are seeing things we've never seen before. I mean, we've never seen conferences melt down. We've never seen, a lot of this stuff happen so quickly. And I think that's where the Big Ten and the SEC are going to step in and say, hey, we want to take control of this, and we want to make sure that we're securing our personal futures and a good future for college football in the long term. But that's not exactly, a cakewalk, if you will.
Well, and I think that, what the hard news here is that the SEC and the Big Ten are forming a joint advisory board to explore their options beyond the 2025 college football playoff. I thought Ross Dellinger at Yahoo Sports wrote a really in-depth, well-thought-out piece describing this whole situation. And as we've covered at length on this show for over a year now, the college football playoff and the NCAA are completely different entities, but both are very vulnerable because you don't have long-term commitments out of these behemoths in college football to playing by those rules. And frankly, I think one of the biggest misconceptions about what the SEC and the Big Ten are trying to do is I do not believe that they're trying to end the NCAA. And I think Greg Sankey went out of his way, the commissioner of the SEC. And I believe Ross Dellinger had it in his article as well. But, TV industry sources have told us that Greg Sankey specifically wants nothing to do with ending the NCAA. Greg believes that a national governing body of college athletics, specifically college football, is very important. And I would agree. I think there needs to be a reset of standards. This situation with SMU, and this week when the committees meet to talk about what to do with SMU, this was so poorly executed, in my opinion, because of the pressure that Florida State had asserted on the ACC, agreeing to take SMU for no media rights fees, I think was a significant mistake here. And mainly, I think the mistake lies in SMU's quarters because they assumed things that were not actually fact. And now it looks like, hey, the college football playoff has no reason to pay SMU as a P5 university because they're not.
And I think the concept of, hey, the college football playoff committee can do what they want to do. Like, they're not bound by, traditional rules or standards. They can do things like say, hey, that SMU is not should not get a Power 5 share because they're not a Power 5 school, even though they went ahead and jumped into the ACC. Like, that's where I think you get in trouble when you just start assuming that money will be dished out to just anybody who can show up. And it felt like a sweetheart deal out of the ACC, right? Like, hey, ACC, SMU, like we're gonna put this together, and you guys will get no TV distribution, but we'll find other ways. And all of a sudden, it's like, hey, even if you make the college football playoff, in let's say an expanded format, you're still not going to get paid because we don't view you as a Power 5 school. And the problem is we all agree SMU is not a Power 5 school.
Well, but I also think there is this larger issue of these different leagues playing in the Wild Wild West. We've talked about this specifically with the Pac-12. The Pac-12 is very well aware, and really it's the Pac-2, and really it's Kirk Schultz being the mouthpiece today and tomorrow in Dallas, where you have a situation where the Pac-12 is trying to figure out if it can survive financially 25, 26, 27 and beyond, because right now there is no guarantee that they will be financially viable, mainly because they're not going to get their $6 million payout. And it's why we told you on the show there was a delay in switching from a 6-6 to a 5-7, where you have 5 guaranteed bids into the college football playoff and 7 at large, because they're trying to figure out how to handle this Pac-12 conundrum. Because I think if you are the Pac-12, you have to explore all of your options. And it's what we've been warning you about since this whole thing with the hey, great, the Pac-2 won control of the Pac-12, but now what? How do you financially secure your future if you are Washington State and Oregon State with no leverage? That's what we're talking about. And Kirk Schultz is on the board this year, and he has the ability now to try and create a never before seen pathway. But can he do that? And if he cannot, I don't think it matters that they won control of the conference. The conference will be a G5 conference, period. And I think it again goes to this idea of why have the Pac-12 and the Mountain West not merged? Because I think this one question has to be answered. And obviously the easy button would be for Kirk Schultz to be like, we're a P5 and that's how we're going to operate. He knows he can't do that, because sources have continued to tell us it's not a matter of if, but when this goes to 5-7. And I think we all expect it to happen today or tomorrow in Dallas with the College Football Playoff Management Committee meeting. I think the College Football Playoff is well aware that more money has to go to the P4, or you're going to continue to see things like the SEC Big Ten Advisory Council, or whatever they want to call it officially, advisory board, exploring other options. Because let's not misrepresent what the headline is here. The College Football Playoff is not secure beyond 2025. And I think that is the biggest story here. I think that is the biggest talking point here. And I think this is this whole question of what was Charlie Baker doing when he said, hey, here's a plan that we came up with. Let's create a tier where the super rich play for their own championship and everybody else is playing for the College Football Playoff?
I guess. I mean, I think Charlie Baker was planting the seed of an idea. Charlie Baker was saying, hey, here's a concept that we feel like could potentially work. Obviously, everyone would have to agree to it. But basically it's kind of an alternative plan, or if you want to call it a backup plan, I guess, or whatever you want to call it. Like, I think that at some point the rich kids on the block are going to play in their own pool of money. And it's trending that way because the discrepancy between, schools like Bama and Georgia and Michigan and Ohio State, all the premier nameplates in college football, their money pool is so much higher than just your run-of-the-mill school that it makes it puts everybody in a position where you've got dudes rolling up in Lambos and dudes rolling up in Hondas, and they can't play in the same sandbox. And so Charlie Baker's just simply saying, hey, here's the seed of an idea. Check this out. What do you think of this? Let's open our minds to something new. So I don't know if it's going to be the College Football Playoff past 2025 and, certain conferences are going to get way more and above, or they'll just break away and then everybody else can play for the playoff. Like, I don't know how that's going to work, but I do think what we can be rest assured is that folks in the SEC and the Big Ten are going to get paid more money, as they should, because they do the majority of the winning. They've built a system where they are the ones that are most successful. And because of that, they can lay claim to that. And I think that's what you're going to get. They're going to find a way to get paid more money.
I think you're looking at it. The only plausible scenario is you're looking at a deal where the biggest and the baddest from the P4 wind up in this upper tier. I don't think there's any way that you can have the SEC and the Big Ten break off onto their own and create a separate thing. That's not manageable, because you have situations. I mean, for everything that the ACC is not, certainly you have leverageable brands in the ACC that also carry significant influence in college basketball. And again, I think we all try to write off college basketball and we all want to say, well, let's have football and then everything else. Like, it doesn't work that way. Universities like North Carolina, that's a basketball powerhouse. Kansas, which is a basketball powerhouse and also ran in college football. They're not just going to watch their college football money become secondary. They're going to leverage college basketball to get what they need in college football. And that's exactly what it should be. But again, I think it's really important. I have not been told one time that the SEC and the Big Ten are trying to end the NCAA. I don't think that's their goal here. I think their goal is to make the most money possible with the biggest football programs in the country. And I think they want to cherry pick the best of the Big Ten, because I don't think that the Big Ten believes that they're top to bottom the best league in the country. They're only in this conversation because of the money that they brought. That's why the Big Ten is in this conversation. And I think you look at the SEC again, and you don't have to like it, but you better learn to love it. Greg Sankey is arguably one of the most, not even arguably, inarguably one of the most powerful men in college football, period, because he oversees SEC football. And what he wants, generally, he is going to get. And I think he wants to create this upper tier. I think that this advisory board is going to work with Charlie Baker and the NCAA to facilitate that. And I think that's going to mean schools like, I don't know, who's the best Utah. I think Utah would wind up as the best football program in the upcoming Big 12. I think Utah ends up in this upper tier because they have all the money. They have the football program. They have what you want in a football program. Is the rest of the Big 12 secure? Not in any way, shape, or form. I think what this tells you is if you're the ACC and you're the Big 12, winning time is actually right now.
Mm-hmm.
You need to start winning football games at a very high level. And I think if you are again, Colorado's a very interesting model because I think everybody assumes that Colorado is making all this money because of Deion Sanders. Deion Sanders is worth in brand. He's worth significant money. They're operating at a loss at Colorado. So it's going to be very interesting to see how long that goes on for and what that means in the grand scheme of things. Colorado's a very interesting case study, but I look at the teams that at the top of the Big 12. I don't think anybody outside of Utah is secure in that upper tier.
And if you're the Big 12, seeing Texas and Oklahoma leave your conference for the SEC should be a sign of things to come, and I think, again, it's not as though, the Big 12 is going to melt down tomorrow. But when you talk about making more money and competing from that standpoint, you want the biggest brands that you can get in your conference winning the most football games. And so, yeah, it's important that Utah has success. I do think you make a good point about Colorado. Colorado can't continue to be, and I know it's only one season. I'm not even saying it's a trend, but Deion's got to find a way to get that program into a place where you're pushing 7, 8, 9 wins. You just got to keep progressing into that program. But you look around the Big 12, again, what are we going to get out of Gundy? What are we going to get out of K-State now that Will Howard's gone? What are we getting out of Kansas? Which Kansas do we get on the regular, right? Do we get the Kansas that played Oklahoma and Texas, or do we get the Kansas that let us down in other games at different points last season? So that's why I say, the Big 12 doesn't have the luxury of having Michigan, Ohio State, SC, Oregon, UCLA, right? They don't have the luxury of Alabama, Georgia, Texas, Oklahoma, Ole Miss. So the Big 12, and I would even say you look at the ACC, to your point, the ACC does have bigger brands. They may not be winning right now, but it's still Dabo and Clemson. You tell me that Dabo wouldn't all of a sudden start to pop off a little bit if he knew that an opportunity to get into more money was available to him?
Well, look at BYU.
Yeah, another great example.
BYU, what is BYU, 16-5 in basketball right now? And BYU's a huge brand financially, viewership-wise. Are you putting them in an elite tier of college athletics? Because I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not putting them there. I look at Houston. I think Houston's a fascinating brand right there with Kansas. Houston has not historically been a football powerhouse. Well, right now they're one of the best college basketball teams in the country.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wonder, does a university like Houston have the juice? I don't think they do. Does a university like Kansas have the juice? I think I could argue that they do.
Absolutely. I think Kansas is iconic might be strong, but Kansas as a brand has heritage. Kansas basketball is not in question.
This is, again, the question of how much influence will basketball money have on football decisions? I think that is a huge talking point. And I look at the meetings. These next 2 days are absolutely massive.
Mm-hmm.
It is just such a different time. We're in such a different place in athletics. And I think these long TV deals, how does the Big Ten operate when you just signed a brand new TV deal and you're talking about in 2 years being in a different stratosphere of operation? And I think it's awfully difficult to get the votes to say, yeah, we want, the worst we want Purdue in Big Ten football. We want, no, you don't. Is there anybody who feels like you look at the bottom of the Big Ten? Is there anybody that feels like Indiana football belongs, Indiana basketball belongs in the elite college
because it's garbage
football revenue generating tier where they can pay more and operate on a different set of rules?
No.
Is there anybody telling me that Minnesota or Illinois or Purdue You know, the mighty 4-8 Purdue Boilermaker football program belongs in an upper tier? Sorry, man, I don't.
But I do think it's interesting. Like, you look at Purdue basketball, and they've had some hotter years on the hardwood. They have. Like,
look at Baylor basketball.
Baylor basketball, another good example.
Having another strong season.
Year. Awful on the football field, really good in basketball.
Yeah, I think it's an incredibly important day in time in college athletics. I think these next 2 days are really, really history making. I think if we look at what the future of the Pac-12 brand is, I think we're going to a 5-7. There's just no doubt about that. It is going to happen. What happens to the Pac-12? Where do they end up? What is their designation? How quickly can they get a merger done with the Mountain West? Will the Mountain West want to merge with the Pac-12? Because there is no question that Gloria Nevarez and the members of the Mountain West do not want to be a G5 anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But will we even have P5s anymore? I don't think we will. I think we will have this upper tier and everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't know. I don't know what you say to a fan of like a TCU. What are you going to say to TCU? What are you going to say to Texas Tech? Is Texas Tech in that elite tier?
It's
hard to say they are.
I think the hard part, specifically in college football, but I guess same logic in college basketball on some level, like we've gotten so far with individual brands just carrying conferences that now they've garnered more power. So you have these commissioners sitting here looking at, like, again, in the Big Ten, you look at Michigan, impending discipline aside, you look at Michigan, you look at Ohio State, you look at these brands, and it's like, dude, these brands are really quality brands. And
is Washington in that group?
Yeah, I think Washington's in that group. Absolutely. Yeah. I think Washington's a good brand. I think they're not good in basketball. So Jed Fish better figure it the hell out quick on the football field. But I think there's no way around the fact that they can sit here and say, hey, yeah, like we went to we went to the national championship game last year. We've been competing for the Pac-12 championship pretty much they've been in that conversation, the Pac-12 championship, every year. It's basically been a 3-dog race every year until this year.
West Virginia?
Probably not. No, probably not. You're probably not good enough in football right now.
Look at
Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State is,
this is just such a cluster F.
Yeah.
Like you have got to make a decisive move.
Like, think about the task given to these people who have to decide, hey, who gets in and who gets out in this sort of upper tier concept. Like, what are the parameters? Is the parameter strictly financial? Because you're going to get in trouble that way if it is. Like, you're going to have more, hey, we just want to buy our way in even though our team sucks. But if you go performance-based, you're going to have to play that line of like, hey, are we doing win percentage or what are we doing here, man?
What is the determining factor?
Yeah, like I think it's an impossible question to answer.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know what bar you would use.
Yeah,
I totally agree with that.
I mean, if you do win percentage, people are going to get screwed. If you do total wins in the last how about this? Total wins in the college football playoff era, and you have to be at a certain number. Dude, I like. There's not going to be enough
people
teams.
Would be excluded from that. Like,
that's my point. Okay, so
TV audience, revenue generation. Like,
how many times have you been in the basketball tournament over the last 10 years?
Yeah, collective value.
Yeah,
well, SMU's number one then. If you ask SMU,
right?
I don't know. You got to get to a 5-7 model. I think that much is very clear. I think that happens over the next 2 days. It's the only way to secure the bag for the Big Ten and the SEC. And I think if you get to that 5-7 model, then you can start, you'll placate the G5s because it opens up more spots for the G5.
Right.
I think you'll placate the biggest and the best because you're looking at more money in a 5-7 model. Obviously, the P4s are going to get more money out of that. And that, I think, is ultimately what they're after. And then I think the only way like if you look at this FSU, Florida State versus the ACC, BS that's going on, how does that come to a screeching halt? You create a new tier where Florida State plays football in that tier, and there's no more questions, right? There just is no more questions. And I just wonder if you cherry pick the best out of each conference in football only, obviously, if you cherry pick the best out of that conference, what happens to the remaining football part of that apparatus? I don't know either.
I do think if you do that, you have a responsibility to come up with a structure for what's left. I think that it's irresponsible just from a big picture health perspective to say, okay, we're going to cherry pick, the top schools, out of every conference. And we're going to try and come up with, let's call it 30 schools for this upper tier. Let's 30 different football programs for this upper tier. Okay, that means that then what are we going to do with everybody else? Because there's more people in the everybody else category than there are in the upper tier category.
And it's interesting. One guy I talked to about college football, a source of mine, was telling me this has relegation written all over it. Because if you have, and the number that's being thrown around is the top 50 universities.
Okay, the top 50.
You have to qualify based on revenue, win percentage, like you would. There's a formula. And I think some of that formula is going to include TV numbers, because you have to placate your TV partners. It is going to be value of your collectives. I think there's going to be a collective NIL piece to it. And I think on-field performance is going to be part of it. So you have every conference that feeds into this top 50, whatever it is. And that's how you decide, hey, here's the national champion of college football. But if you fall below this amount of collective, this win like the formula, hey, you've got to win 80% of your games. Okay. But you also have to have $800 trillion in collective money banked.
Yeah.
Right. You have to have $1 billion in liquidity, whatever that might be.
And I think there's opportunity to create 3 tiers with that. Right. I mean, you have the top tier, you got the middle tier, and you have the lower tier. And I think, to me, and again, everybody automatically defaults to like the European soccer model. I think you could take some ideas from that. I think the European soccer model is way deeper than this will ever be. But I think if you had 3 tiers, right, you had the lower tier, the middle tier, and the upper tier. The upper tier is obviously playing for the national championship of college football, the highest level you can play for. But I also think if for the middle tier and the lower tier, if you had a quote unquote championship game, if you will, for that tier, you can have payouts, and you can have, if you market it correctly and you position it correctly, you can make a lot of money off of that for your TV partners. And by the way, in a relegation setup, if you win, let's say the middle tier, next year you're automatically qualified to compete against those bigger schools, right? That's where you have to, if you're going to try to rock a relegation system,
totally agree.
You have to have incentives for winning the championship at the lower tier so that everyone's bought in. But I agree, you have to take into account collective value, total, you can't tell me these people aren't going to be looking at total student body size, revenue.
Well, I think it comes down to your ability to attract the best talent.
Yeah.
And pay that talent. That's what this comes down to. And it's why everybody I've talked to about this says NIL collective value matters. And because it's the only way you're going to get the top talent. And I think the best part about this is you're going to see that NIL is going to become much more structured. I think, and everybody's like, well, we need to deregulate. No, actually you don't. You need to regulate. And it needs to be A plus B equals you can pay a player. And it's very black and white. Here's what you're allowed to do. Here's what you're not. Go ahead and pay your players. And
I also think you got to, again, if we do that, and I love that, but you also got to pick up the pace on the discipline side of things, because again, you can't have, like, I'm a little burned out on, hey, this school went and won a natty, but then a year from now, we're going to take their natty away, even though it's impossible to do that. And we're going to punish them a year after, even though their head coach left. Like, you have to have a way to be much more quick on your feet, if you will. You got to be much swifter with things. And the only way to do that is to clearly outline what's illegal and what is not illegal. And I think that's where the NCAA got themselves in trouble. So I absolutely think, the conversation around how to pay players, what you can pay them, what that looks like and doesn't look like, combined with, hey, this is the discipline for doing X, Y, and Z. And being able to quickly act on that is a crucial part of the conversation.
Yep, totally agree. All right, little breaking news out of college football as well, presented by our good friends at Prize Picks, prizepicks.com, the official daily fantasy provider of the Monty Show. Steve Belichick leaves the New England Patriots and is now officially the defensive coordinator of the Washington Huskies, and I think this is an absolute thievery by Jed Fish in Washington. I think Steve Belichick, obviously mentored by his father, Bill, is one of the best defensive minds in the NFL. Obviously, you are aware he has been the play caller at New England for several seasons. He has led one of the best defensive units for maybe the last 5 years, easily the last 5 years. But I think this is a great hire by Jed Fish in Washington, and you're going to need it. Going into the Big Ten against some really physical, grinding teams, you're going to need an elite defense at Washington, and I think Jed Fish got a steal here.
Absolutely, and I think this is the type of hire that brings a lot of confidence to your football program, right? Like your head coach comes in, and I don't even know how long it's been since he officially took that job. What, a couple weeks now, and he's already polling candidates like this. And I think when you look at how to be successful in the Big Ten. Yeah, you need some offense, but great defenses in the Big Ten typically have a lot of success. Yes. Again, we saw that with Michigan. I think over the years, when Ohio State's had a great defense, we've seen it with them. Hell, the Penn State defenses over the years, you've seen a couple of good ones. So this makes a lot of sense. And I think when you look at, where Washington's going and the type of talent they're going to face in the Big Ten, Dan Lanning's going to be sitting right there next to you, man. And he's going to have a good defense. So this to me, I completely agree, makes perfect sense.
Yeah, that's a great hire by Jed Fish. I think Jed Fish is going to do a much better job than most people give him credit for. I think what he did in Tucson with the Fighting Fafitas was nothing short of miraculous. And I think this is an incredible hire by Washington. And I think Steve Belichick going to the University of Washington as their defensive coordinator, I think it's brilliant. I think obviously the other news of the day in coordinator land is Kliff Kingsbury to the Washington Commanders, which is, I think, a massive, massive win for the Commanders, especially if they are trying to trade up to get Caleb Williams. And Washington is number 2. Obviously, the hapless Chicago Bears are number 1. But these coordinator jobs and all these head coaches leaving college football to go to the NFL as coordinators, this is a big win for Washington because I think Steve Belichick is going to rebound. He's going to be a head coaching candidate in the NFL. There is no doubt about that. And I think he will, before too long, have that Washington defense at the top of the Big Ten, which is really saying something when Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, when you have grinder defenses like that. Iowa obviously is in that conversation. This is a big hire for Washington. Prize Picks. Make sure you download the Prize Picks app. Use the promo code Monty. Get 100% prize pick deposit matching, which means you deposit $20. They're going to give you $20. They're matching your deposit 100% up to $100, you guys. And again, I can only continue to tell you about my dominance on Prize Picks.
Yeah, you've been on a heater, bro.
I have a system where I play 3 selections on a flex play. So at Prize Picks, you could say, okay, I'm only going to cash out if I win all 3 of my selections, right? Or you can play a flex pick, which is you get paid if 2 of your 3 hit or 3 of your 3 hit. My system is I take 3 guys and I play a flex every single time. For instance, last night I took Kevin Durant. I'm not taking the Suns guys anymore on Prize Picks. I can't get Book to hit when he's hot. I can't get Brad Beal, but who's taking Brad Beal? And then Kevin Durant has an off night the one night I pick him. So he was my loss last night, but John Collins, John Collins.
Yeah.
27 points, rebounds, and assists. Yes, sir. Paul George. How about Paul George? You want to talk about living on the right side of the line? I needed 26 points from Paul George.
Uh-huh.
He got me 26 points, rebounds and assists.
Good Lord.
26 points, rebounds and assists. I needed 26 to win. He got it. You know how he got it? He got fouled at the end of the game and went 2 for 2 from the free throw line.
Let's go, baby.
Like, that's living right.
Let's go.
I've won 5 straight Prize Picks selections. Mikal Bridges, I needed 32. He had 31 the other night, but I got Donovan Mitchell and Damian Lillard and Luka Doncic, I think, in the steal of all time. Luka Doncic. I needed them to have 7 threes. They had 9. John Collins, Tyrese Maxey, and Walker Kessler. Like, I'm red hot.
Right.
I'm red hot. I am. That's
You're
why
doing your thing.
That's why I am the Prize Picks sex machine.
The master.
I've won over $1,000 just in the month of January.
Uh-huh.
Pimp's gonna pimp, dude.
Yeah, dude.
It's what I do. Download the Prize Picks app. Get at me, bro. Hit me on Twitter or Instagram with your picks. Let's talk about it. Because I'm red hot right now. And all I can say is, you're right. I am not just good looking anymore.
Yeah, you're him.
Now I am more than my boyish good looks.
Right. You're him, Imani.
I'm making him, he's making y'all that bread. Let's get your thoughts. Dakota Tubbs, but Monty, SMU delivers Tarrant County, boy.
First comment.
SMU, and listen, I get it. SMU was desperate. I think they saw their only shot and they took it.
Right.
But they're in real limbo today. And again, if you're just tuning in, the College Football Playoff Management Committee is meeting in Dallas, which is actually Tarrant County, boy. They're meeting in Dallas the next 2 days, today and tomorrow. And one of the discussions they're expected to have is, are we going to recognize SMU as a P5 university?
Uh-huh.
And it is not expected that they will. Now, I don't know what they're going to do, but I think if you're the College Football Playoff, you're not here to degrade the level of acceptance, the level of recognition for being one of the elites of college football.
Right.
Why would you recognize SMU? They've done and SMU, boy, all hat, no cattle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we have so much money in collectives. Oh, we have booster money. Well, then why haven't you won the American? You have all this money. How come you're not winning football games and just destroying your G5 competition?
And this is why I always say, dude, winning is the ultimate cure-all. It is the ultimate cure-all.
It's not even the cure-all. It's the hammer. When you say, well, look, we went undefeated the last 5 years in G5 play. What more can we do? Yeah, guys are in. You're one of the – oh, but you haven't. Now, basketball, you've been competitive. But football, you've been an afterthought.
Yeah.
And I think that's, as I'm told, the message that the College Football Playoff Management Committee is trying to avoid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just get into a conference and we're going to pay you. You actually need to be competitive. And it's the ultimate argument with the Big Ten. Half of your league can't compete on the football field. Half of your league cannot compete on the football field.
Yeah, it's not a good look.
And I think it's a terrible look. So we'll see. I again say history is going to be made in these next 2 days. I think these meetings are huge. Mike Smith, good to see you, Mama. How are you? Remember the narrative that the Big did not want to be seen as destroying the Pac-12? I think the same thing with this big SEC situation. I think that they are very aware of the writing of history.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that you see that Oregon and Washington, and Utah is the perfect example of this as well. They waited until the 11th hour, and I mean 59 minutes into the 11th hour and 59 seconds into the 59th minute of the 11th hour.
Yeah.
Like the last possible moment, they waited. And then they made the jump. And I think that's what the Big Ten is very aware of. They do not want to just be plundering the riches of the poor. And I think that's a very tactical way to put it. And Mike, I think you're exactly right. I think that's exactly right.
Yeah.
KC Boss says it's early.
What?
It was early at 3:55 when I got up. No doubt. Scott of Graywater, they're killing the TCU, Cincy, Boise State, U of H runs. Well, listen, we and Cincinnati fans had a hysterectomy on this show when I said I don't get it.
Yeah.
And to this day, I don't get it.
Yeah.
On to Cincinnati.
Not sure what Cincinnati's doing in a P5 league. 1-8 last year. And I think you've got great leadership in football. It's going to be a hell of a mountain to climb.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a years-long battle.
I think Cincinnati is another example of a team that has no business being in that level of play, and they are, and it's a bad look.
And you look at Luke Fickell at Wisco.
What are we doing?
He's building.
I guess.
He is. They're moving in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
They are. OG Gary, good morning to you. Big may be back to the Big Two with Oregon State and Oregon, or Ohio State and Oregon. Battle of the O will be crazy, and throw USC and Penn State will be tier 2. I don't think that USC is tier anything but 1. And look, I get it. You want results. I totally understand it. USC, I think USC is going to be fine.
Well, USC is one of those schools that is, they're thriving on brand recognition and value, and I think that you have some of the ingredients to be really successful at USC. I mean, certainly funding's not a question. Facilities, okay, great. All that's taken care of. But it really comes down to this concept of, not just the defense, but the total package on the football field. When does USC get back to being a true threat for a national championship? Because I think there for a minute they were, but then they took this big step back. And so now it's like, all right, cool. Caleb Williams is moving on. Like, there's some turnover happening now, as it happens in every football program. So what does Lincoln Riley do to get them moving in the right direction? Like, I'm waiting for this team to feel more dominant. Like, I want college football needs USC to be one of those top dogs, and they just haven't been able to get over the hump yet.
Yep. OG Gary also says Utah, Florida State, Clemson, UNC, Duke, and Kansas are all set for the upper tier. They're not. I 100% disagree. I think, Florida State, no doubt about it. I think Utah, Clemson, Duke, and Kansas are all very questionable, because we're not talking about basketball. We're talking about football. And I think we're going to, as I said earlier, we're going to have to find out how much basketball matters. And I'm not certain that in a football conversation, Kansas, Duke, and North Carolina, Clemson, and I think Utah, Clemson and Utah win in football.
Mm-hmm.
They are, I think Dabo Swinney has done so much damage to Clemson football. I don't know where they stand.
Yeah, they've just been purely mediocre, like purely not relevant, completely mediocre, chilling in the ACC. And I think that Florida State, the problem for Florida State is nobody questions that you had a solid team this year, right? Like again, it's that whole Jordan Travis, if he's healthy, you're in the college football playoff concept. But the problem is that it's not like Florida State is a juggernaut every single year. You had one big year. What are you next year? Like, you don't have to ask that question about, again, you don't have to ask that question about Ohio State or Oregon or the SEC schools. Like, the dudes in college football, and the ones that show up for a cup of coffee and then disappear for 5 years. And frankly, that's kind of who Florida State has been. You showed up this year, but when was the last time you were even in conversation? And
I think there's a lot of people who don't want to be in business with Florida State.
Mm-hmm.
I think this lawsuit nonsense, I think that they thumb their nose at a lot of really important people. And because they may be suing the NCAA, and okay, great. They may be suing the ACC. Okay, great. But when you're in litigation against those two organizations, and whether you are, on paper or not, they certainly are suing the ACC, and
mm-hmm.
You're suing the College Football Playoff Committee. That's what you're doing. And I think that you need relationships right now. It's the biggest problem for Kurt Schultz. He has zero relationships, zero leverage, zero respect. He is not well respected. And you're looking at a situation where Kirk Schultz is standing on an island. And I think Florida State and Clemson are the same. And Florida State had better have a stellar football season this coming season.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you had better kick everybody's ass. Like, you had better be just incredible, because I think you are on the edge of being that black sheep, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I'd be very, very careful. Mike Smith, Missouri's losing a lot of really good players to the draft this year. They are. And I know I keep saying this, and every Missouri fan that watches this show loses their shit every time I say it. You're going to have to reprove yourself, because you've never proven yourself before. And you've had this great year, but now you better go and reprove it, because you have to. You were not one of the, in my opinion, one of the elites. Missouri is Missouri in that top tier? I don't think they are.
Well, in the college football playoff ranking says they weren't, right? I mean, how they're viewed says they're not. And again, it's a difference of between showing up once every 5 to 10 years and being there every single year. It's a big difference, man. And I'm telling you, that's why we're having this conversation. Hey, we're Georgia and Alabama. We're tired of carrying everybody every single year. We want to get paid more. And that's why you're in this conversation.
Yeah. It's interesting. Wasikowski says eventually they will end the NCAA. I don't think they will. I think they will significantly reduce the impact that the NCAA has. But the NCAA is always going to be a regulatory body. Mm-hmm. It is always going to have enforcement power. I think that you are essentially what you're doing. If you're the ACC, if you're the Big 12, you're just trying to keep your seat at the table. But if you're the SEC and the Big 10, you're rewriting the rules to make it easier for yourself to win. That's the bottom line. You are going to rewrite rules so that you don't have these NIL consequences, so that there are no more, COVID dark period problems.
Right.
Like if you're a scumbag like Jim Harbaugh who can't follow any rule at all, it's impossible. You're always going to be run afoul of the law. But if you are in general one of the power players in college football specifically, you're not going to have any trouble. Because I think what this operation is designed to do is to rewrite the rules in favor of the haves versus the have-nots.
Absolutely.
The NCAA, I don't think, is going anywhere. I truly do. I think it will have far less influence. In my opinion, it will have far less influence.
No, I think there's big value. Now. There's big value in having, your disciplined body be separate from the body that decides the future of college football. You need your disciplined body to be unbiased and just like, hey, here's the rule. You did this. Here's the punishment. There's big value in that.
Yep. UW fan Jim, you two are frosty in the morning. Great show.
Thanks, Jim.
I'm not sure what that means.
I don't know what that means either, but I'll take the compliment.
What is that? Yay! Mean? Ask me in an hour and a half when we're talking about baby names. Matt Ritson, do you think Calford get in the Big Two? How about Notre Dame? Well, Notre Dame's got a free pass. Notre Dame makes you so much money. I don't even think it's a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
It's Notre Dame's seat at the table is not in question. Calford,
again, you don't win anything.
What do you bring to the table?
Yeah.
If you had stayed in the Pac-12, the Pac-12 would have significantly more leverage than they have now. In the ACC, I think they bring zero leverage. That's my opinion. Mike Smith, Dabo might have hurt Clemson, but only after he made them relevant again. And then
but
irrelevant
how long
again.
Ago? Yeah.
Right.
Like,
Clemson, his unwillingness to play the portal NIL game, I think it's just a complete lack of leadership.
We built this program on NIL.
If you don't want to play the portal NIL game, you shouldn't be in college football. It really is that simple. OG Gary, I don't see USC making the moves that Oregon and Ohio State are. Seems like every week a new marquee guy is headed to either one of those two schools. Well, I would point out that, did USC do nothing in the transfer portal? I would point out that and again, maybe I'm just wrong. I don't think so. They have a very strong recruiting class again. I don't know. Listen, I don't know what more people want USC to do, because I look at their 2024 class. I mean, Jaden Mayava is as good of a transfer portal acquisition as there is in college football.
Mm-hmm.
And he could have gone anywhere. He went to USC. Isaiah Rakes is a 9.0 defensive lineman on a team that was desperate for defensive linemen. You look at, I mean, John Humphrey, Jaquavius Marks. I mean, I don't know what else you want USC to do. And we haven't even gotten to the spring portal period yet. I mean, like what they did to restock their defense, like how many 9.0 graded guys are you going to get on defense?
Yeah.
I think I don't know what else you want them to do, man.
And look, I think the thing for Lincoln is that because he's got the USC brand behind him and because he is who he is, he can recruit at a really high level. Recruitment's never been Lincoln's problem. He's always had great talent. The question is, what will you do with that talent? Because I think now more than ever, like they need to be in the college football playoff, hell or high water. Like you need to be in the college football playoff and you need to win some games in that thing, whether that's just one and done or whatever the case may be, right? You need to be able to say, hey man, we're in the college football playoff in the expanded era. We're doing it. Like we're in that top cut. So to me, and they're probably in the top cut either way, but you want to solidify your position. You don't want there to be any questions.
Yeah, I don't know what else you would want SC to do. Like, I mean, their recruiting class. I look at their recruiting class and they're 17th in the country, man. Like, I just don't know. Maybe they're not as flashy as people would like. I feel like every day on this show somebody says that. Like, they're four-star guys. Like, do you understand? Like, they've pulled from Atlanta, Los Angeles, Texas, Connecticut, Georgia, Michigan, Arlington, Dallas, Austin, Lake Oswego, Oregon for a tight end. Like, I just don't know what USC has to do to get somebody not to say that they're not making moves. I just wonder. And Gary, I love you, dude, but did you look at anything before you said that? Because I don't think you did. I really don't. Ferris Khan, Notre Dame is in the Big Ten in hockey.
And why does that matter? Like,
our team's going to be in different conferences based on sports now. Who cares? They're in the ACC for everything but football, essentially. Why should a random tennis player in Maryland need to play a conference match at UCLA? Because they're told to play tennis wherever they're told to play tennis. Like, you're in the Big Ten. You know why? I can think of 100 million reasons why Maryland should play tennis at UCLA.
Because Maryland doesn't have the hammer to choose where they want to play?
Because Maryland's invisible.
Yeah.
Maryland's invisible. I just think it is what it is. Mike Smith, Lincoln Riley will produce an offense and a Heisman candidate quarterback, but he also be a coach with a liability on defense that costs his team when it counts. Yeah, I don't know if I would say that anymore either. And I want to make sure I don't get this wrong. His hire this offseason, football staff. I think you would be pleasantly surprised. Obviously, he made significant change. God, I hate pop-ups. I cannot stand it. Oh, that's right. I forgot the C&J Alderling head football coach at USC. Their head football coach has a sponsor. But if you look at their staff, he has added significant talent to his defensive staff. And I think it's very interesting to see guys like Taylor Mays, Bookie Radley-Hiles is an analyst on that staff now. Obviously, you were able to retain Sean Nua as your defensive line coach. I think let's see how he rounds out his staff. But I think USC football's in for a big bounce back. And you know what? I also think he loves doing it quietly. Loves doing it quietly.
Mm-hmm.
So, Jacob Steinicken, any updates on Bitch again? I don't know who that is.
Yeah, who's
I've
that?
never heard of Bitch. What does that mean? Mike Smith. The smarter move for the Big Ten and SEC is not to end the NCAA. It is to be ones controlling the NCAA, which I think they're doing. Boyd Lake, same old. Probably. You know. ACC equals Association of Clown Colleges. Right now it is. Robert Fowler, you really think Michigan gets off the hook now? Who said that?
Yeah, who the hell said that, dude?
We never said that. Sean Rollins says, hit the like button. Yes, please hit the like button. We've had over 1,100 views today, and we only have 48 likes. Hit the like button. That would be awesome. Appreciate you guys doing that. Just block the Ferris guy. Truly is a waste of time trying to argue with a brick wall of nonsense. Yeah, we don't read his comments very often because Ferris Khan is he's not very noticeable. Or how shall I say it? It's very noticeable he's not educated on college football.
Right.
So, too many delusional bias Homer Michigan fans on this page. Okay.
Okay.
I mean, there are other pages. It's up to you, though. Mad Cat. College football could be turned upside down in the next couple of days. It really could. I think these meetings today and tomorrow are massive. 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 Sean Rollins says, catch you guys later. See you, Sean. Good to see you as always. Robert Fowler, you're bitching about Ferris Khan, yet what are you doing? You're engaging with the guy. Like, why? This is the thing I've never understood about sports fans. He's an idiot. He doesn't know. Okay, then why are you giving air to the things he says?
Yeah.
I don't care if he comments. It helps the show.
Yeah.
Great comment. I don't give like to those guys. Fresno is in the Big 12 in wrestling. Oh my God.
Bro.
Changes are coming. OG Gary, I need to see USC be a threat. They were a threat the last 2 years to win the conference. Right? They were darn near in the college football playoff last year. Like they used to be in the past. Until then, I am not comfortable saying tier 1. Anything that involves those 3 letters in football, USC in football, they're tier 1. It's not a conversation. It's not a question. It's not up for debate.
Yeah.
If there's a top tier in college football, USC's in it. Nothing to talk about. Brandon Butler, his offense is not conducive at USC to defense. He leaves them on the field way too long. Riley needs to adjust his philosophy just like Witt at Utah. Well, no, because if you coach your offense the way Witt at Utah does, you won't have any skill position players. Because again, I just ask if you're why didn't Maiyava choose Utah? Could have gone to any college in the country. Why does Utah have trouble recruiting top quarterbacks? Well, because they're a program that would rather turn around and run it. And they don't have top wide receiver talent. And they are not attracting top quarterback talent. The issue at USC is very simple. You have to hire and develop your defensive staff so that they can teach and develop your recruits and players.
100%. And once you do that, you should have a lot of success.
That's it.
I mean, I just don't know how we sit here and we're like, yeah, USC wouldn't be in tier 1. Like, what do you mean?
That's
dude?
wild.
Like, I understand that, hey, maybe USC hasn't achieved at the level we all thought they would, but that doesn't mean that all of a sudden they're not tier 1. And I'm not even a USC fan. I'm just sitting here telling you it's Lincoln Riley, it's USC, it's Heisman conversation every year. Like they're a top flight program, man. And all they need to do is figure out how to play some defense, because once they play defense, it's over for you. But he just hasn't quite gotten over that hump yet.
Yeah, I don't have any doubt. And I would isn't Lincoln Riley only been there 2 years? I want to say, I think he's only been there 2 years. Like, are we really? He was hired at November 28th, 2021. He's just finished his second season, and he's put a Heisman Trophy winner out, and he's put dudes in the draft, and he damn near went to the college football playoff in year one. This whole thing with Lincoln Riley at USC, I think it is the most short-sighted ridiculousness that potentially I have heard on this show ever.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had some ridiculousness.
Yeah.
The idea that USC would not be in a top tier.
It's crazy.
Like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? I don't even. Boyd Lake, I just want a real college football playoff championship. I don't want them to destroy that before it even starts. I think the biggest issue, I think the ACC, the Calford SMU thing's a huge problem. I think the Pac-12 meltdown's a huge problem. And I think that these universities that are willing to degrade themselves and to whore out their services for no money, SMU, are a huge problem.
Yes.
So, like, we're in a period of time where you're looking at universities losing control of their conferences. That's what this is, whether you want it to be or not. That's what this is. Plain and simple.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't know. Look, the reality of the situation is, again, it's a simple concept, man. If you win on the football field, you're going to garner power. If you win regularly on the football field, you're going to garner power. Because if you win on the football field, nobody gives a damn what you do on the basketball court, right? Like, yeah, sure, it's a plus. It's a cherry on top if you have a strong football and basketball team. That's great. But nobody's talking about Georgia basketball, dude. We're talking about Georgia football, man. Like, I don't need to know what the USC basketball program's not doing because I know what the football program is doing, right? Like, that's the difference between a lot of these schools is that when you're a juggernaut in football, you have power at the table. So that's why Greg Sankey's the most powerful man in college football, because the SEC has run through everybody in college football. It's that simple. So as far as SC is concerned, or anybody else at SC's level, all you got to do is get into the college football playoff every year, be a regular in the conversation, and you're in tier one. Like, that's it. Like, it's that simple.
Do you guys understand that Lincoln Riley is 50-12 in his coaching career? He's 50-12. He's coming off of 2 seasons at USC where he was 11-3 and 8-5. And he's never finished until this season ranked lower than 12th in the AP. And he's 40 years old, I think, 41. And we're sitting here talking about a guy who just doesn't coach defense and they're not tier one. And are you out of your mind? He's 50-12.
I'm a man.
I sometimes maybe it's just there's a Monday morning fog today. I don't understand this. I don't understand this.
You guys didn't
get
get enough sleep last night. That's what this is.
Like, it's wild to me that we're sitting here trying to have that I have to defend USC as a top tier football program because Gary and others are saying they don't belong with the top programs in the country. Are you out of your fucking minds?
Oh, what are you talking about, man?
Like, what did you do over the weekend? He's 50-12 in his coaching career. And he's not one of the best. And it's not like he was at SMU. He was at Oklahoma, and now he's at USC. He's had one bad year, and all of a sudden they're not in the and I'll remind you, his bad year is 8-5. And now they're not a top-tier program. That's crazy.
Program.
That is crazy to me.
Yeah.
His quarterback is going to be the first quarterback taken. I don't even understand this, man. Like, and I'm trying. Like, I'm not trying to be all, but this idea that Lincoln Riley somehow is, this is a guy who just is what he is. Are you crazy? Do you understand he was 55-10?
dude.
In the regular season. At this guy is 50-12 in conference football games.
Yeah.
I guess I just don't get it. I guess I just don't. His career coaching record is 74-18.
Okay. This is the only thing he's got to fix. He has not figured out quite yet how to get into the national championship game, and there's a very select few who have. And I'm telling you, this guy is not far away from it.
The real conversation is his record in bowl games, which is what you're talking about. And being that he is 2-4 in bowl games, that's what you should talk about. The idea that somehow because Lincoln Riley is the head coach at USC, that they're not tier 1 is, I don't even.
Well, I don't think people are saying because it's Lincoln. I think what they're saying is that they don't play defense and that they haven't proven the ability to win the big game yet, which I don't even fully agree with. I agree they don't have great defense. He's working on that, but he's also getting to bowl games with regularity. I mean, again, like you just
he's
said,
getting to huge bowl games.
Yeah.
We're talking about the rose and the orange and the peach and the cotton. We're not talking about like December 7th bowl.
The Cheez-It Bowl, the Pop-Tart Bowl.
Like that is, he went to the college football playoff and lost to Georgia in 2018, 54-48. I would agree that he needs to improve his defense. Nobody's going to argue that.
But if you just look at that game, though, think about that. He 54-4, he put up 48 points on Georgia.
And you look at his 2019 12-2 season, and they lost that 63-28 game in the Peach Bowl. But what was it? The college football playoff semifinal.
So there you go.
Right. And you have to at some point realize, oh my God, it makes my head hurt. I'm not willing to do it. I'm not willing to do it. I'm not willing to sit here and justify USC as one of the top programs in the country.
Oh dear. Oh my.
Because, oh man, I just can't believe that they haven't made splashy, changes this offseason. Well, hey man, the portal but the portal, hey, but he also has like a top 20 recruiting class. Yeah, but that doesn't matter. They're not top tier.
Facial recognition.
Are you talking about? Good Lord. Anyway. And then they got smoked by Tulane already. Oh, the Tulane loss after sorry, Tulane, not Liberty. So the Tulane game was just straight up, and that game was, the 40, he's talking about the 46-45 Cotton Bowl. Where no. If I shouldn't have to explain that game to you. You go ahead then. All of you anti-Lincoln USC people. You just go ahead and you fight for shitbags like Jim Harbaugh, who's an embarrassment and a blight on the face of college football, who cowered and ran away and left Michigan in a pile of rubble. You go ahead and you side with those guys. You go ahead and I'll take SC and I'll take Lincoln Riley, who will be a perennial college football playoff coach. And you go be your also. You go play with Tulane. Go on.
That'd be America's team.
It's wild to me.
Tulane.
You're talking about a game. And listen, if you're one of the Tulane guys, you clearly don't understand the events that led up to that game, who played in that game and who didn't. It's amazing to me that people want to hang a game where it was 46-45 in that game. And you're trying, How do you do you guys wake up and choose violence every day? Do you wake up and I just am curious, how miserable are your lives if you're the guy that's being like, well, Tulane, they lost to Tulane.
So don't even think about messing with me.
The guy he was 11-1 and 8-1 in conference, and then he lost to Tulane. What a fraud. Are you serious?
Where are we at in society today?
Do you understand that they were 11-1 that year? It's wild to me. Anyway, hour number 2 of the Monty Show, as always, presented by our good friends at The Advocates, theadvocates.com, the best injury attorneys in the business. You guys, I say it every day on the show. When you get in an accident and you hit your head and say stupid shit like Tulane is better than USC, you definitely need to call The Advocates because you need help. Theadvocates.com. Where you can chat with an injury attorney right now, 24/7, 365. And it won't cost you a dime, because you don't pay the advocates unless and until they win your case. And at the advocates, trust me when I say there's nothing that they have not seen before.
Getting knocked around in an accident is awful. That's why you need someone to look out for you. Call the advocates for your free consultation, and we'll keep you from getting knocked around. Yes.
Tulane.
So, do we need to have a competition for stupidest comment of the day?
I want to understand.
All gas, no brake.
Monty.
They haven't made the splashy transfer. Well, Mayava and but then their recruiting plan. Dude, Lincoln Riley can't recruit. Well, he does have multiple 90 graded defensive players in the portal and
what's up, motherfuckers?
In recruiting, but he doesn't win. Well, he is 50-12 all time in conference, but that's not good enough. Okay. The butts in the ants. Oh, and he lost to Tulane in the Cotton Bowl.
Uh-huh.
Why do we do that in sports? I guess I will just never understand it. I guess I'll never
because Lincoln Riley, there's no getting away from the fact that the optics on the Tulane game are not great, but they did not take the Tulane game seriously. If you believe that Tulane won that game straight up, you're out of your mind, dude.
That was a game they didn't want to play. And Lincoln Riley's talked about it. They were not excited to be there. It was a massive disappointment to be in that game. Didn't want to be there.
Yeah.
Did not want to be there. And that doesn't excuse their miserable performance on defense. Does not. Mike Smith, they were 11-1, kind of like how Ryan Day only lost one, yet you clap his ass all the time because who did he lose to? Did he lose to Tulane in a game that nobody wanted to be in? Oh, no, he didn't. He lost to, go ahead, say it. You can say it. He lost to Michigan. So now, and again, maybe it's just because it's Monday.
Yeah.
But now we're going to compare Ryan Day losing to Michigan multiple years in a row to Lincoln Riley losing to Tulane in a meaningless bowl game.
Is that a real question?
Really? Really? What are you talking? What is wrong with you guys today? We're comparing Ryan Day, who is Lloyd Carr incarnate. We're comparing Ryan Day, who's never gotten over at Ohio State, who's lost multiple years in a row, cheated or not, he lost multiple years in a row. And including this year, where cheating just, if you got beat by some guy stealing your signs after you knew they were stealing everybody's signs, you're an idiot. That's
terrible.
Dakota Tubbs, Tulane is a better man than you are, Monty. Yeah, they are.
Don't you know
Clearly.
who I am?
I don't know shit about college football, obviously.
Well, right.
I think there is much harder path for SC in the Big Ten.
How?
So
How?
The best year that the Pac-12 has had was 2 years ago until this past year. You have Ohio State and Michigan, UCLA, Washington, and Oregon. 5 teams. And it's more difficult. And they play Notre Dame. And it. Okay. OG Gary, again, read the comments that matter. I'm not saying they're not a tier 1 brand. Who?
This is the Monty Show, the truth in sports talk streaming. When you want unbiased opinions about your favorite.
Like, what do you mean brand? What do you mean brand? What does brand have to? They win football games. They're USC. They win football games. They play Notre Dame every year.
Yeah.
They win football games.
Notre Dame, our mother.
What do you mean brand? Brand. What the fuck does brand have to do with anything? What do you mean brand? They recruit, they portal, they make money, they put people in seats. They have people that watch their games on TV, and he's 50-12 in conference football games. And you want to see it on the field? They were 11-1 2 years ago. And you need to see it on the field. I give up.
Pack 10.
I give up. What do you mean? What do you mean? 11-1 with no signature wins. I hope you're talking about Ryan Day. Because that's not Lincoln Riley. Like, that's wild to me.
Yeah.
Like, am I just completely missing this?
Yeah, I think what people are saying is that he hasn't won the big game yet. That's why people hate on Lincoln Riley. That's why they hate on him.
So you're saying Lincoln Riley is not a tier 1 football coach? Because I don't understand this. Where is it? Again, read the comments that matter. I'm not saying they're not a tier 1 brand.
Right.
What does tier 1 brand mean? What does that mean? Like, is Michigan a tier 1 brand? I don't know. What's their brand? They just won a national championship. Until the NCAA says they're not, they are. They're in the top tier. Ohio State's in the top tier. Alabama in the top tier. Georgia in the top tier. USC is in the top tier. Notre Dame is in the top tier.
Right.
It's not a question of their brand. Like, these are the powerhouses, the building blocks, the foundation of college football.
Yeah.
USC is the foundation of college football. Why do you think they were the first one that the Big Ten was like, sure, come on in. We'll even take your little stepbrother over there. At UCLA, who nobody wants. UCLA in the top tier? Yeah, by default they are. But Chip Kelly's more interested in being an offensive coordinator in the NFL than he is a head coach at UCLA, who should have fired his ass anyway. You want to argue about a team that shouldn't be there? Argue about UCLA. I am amazed by this.
Yeah, and I think that's part of being a big team in college football. You're gonna have people that hate on you.
Man.
Absolutely.
So Michigan is a better team by far than Tulane. So wait. So you're saying because Michigan beat Ohio State, it's okay to lose to Michigan multiple years in a row when you don't have anybody else on your schedule? Must be. I hope you're my athletic director if I ever become a football coach, because by that logic, I don't have to do anything. Like, do you understand?
Do you get that they weren't like, you can say, if you want to hold Tulane over Lincoln's head, fine, be my guest. But I'm not going to sit here and judge Lincoln Riley based on one game against a team that they were not interested in playing and had no reason to beat.
They're
like, that's the difference. Ohio State had every reason to beat Michigan and couldn't. USC had no reason to beat Tulane. Literally, and there's no point playing.
USC was coming off of arguably the most difficult loss of Lincoln Riley's career. The second loss to Utah in the Pac-12 championship game in Vegas. That was their championship game. What were they doing even playing in the Cotton Bowl? Like, to argue because they beat a number, like, do you understand? Like, they went to Reeser and won. They went to Arizona and won. They went to UCLA. They beat number 15 Notre Dame. Like, I think, I don't know. I like this is you guys tell me, like, this is a perfectly ridiculous conversation.
Yeah, I don't understand how you don't see the difference between USC losing in a meaningless game, literally a meaningless game to Tulane, and Ryan Day repeatedly losing to Michigan over and over and over again.
You think that's the same thing?
Like,
you think that's the same thing?
It's not even close to the same thing.
Okay, Mike Smith. Mike, I don't understand. Like, if this is so upsetting to you, Monty argues points that he makes up on his own. He only half reads the comments and then goes off on a straw man's argument. What straw man argument? You're saying that Ohio State losing to Michigan is the same thing as USC in a meaningless bowl game losing to Tulane. What straw man argument?
Yeah, like
what straw man argument? I truly don't understand what you mean. What straw man argument? Boyd Lake, if UCLA were top tier, Kingsbury would be their head coach today.
Well,
but he's not, because they didn't want to fire Chip Kelly. It's amazing to me that we're trying to put down Lincoln Riley and USC because of an 11-1 season. And I mean, I could understand if you were making an argument that the losses to Utah were unforgivable. I'd even be here for that. You can't lose to the same team twice in a season. Totally here for that. But you're trying to say that losing to Michigan, Ohio State losing to Michigan, is the same thing as USC losing to Tulane. I think you just don't know college football if you truly believe that.
Yeah.
I don't understand. And then you're telling me I made the argument up. Okay. These people need a bucked up because their brains are not working this morning. Yeah, I guess.
I just don't know why. Like, so you can't have it both ways if you're going to hate on Lincoln Riley. So you can't say, well, Lincoln Riley sucks and doesn't win the big game or whatever. And then on the other hand, say that his loss to Tulane is the same thing as Ohio State losing to Michigan. You can't have it both ways. And to me, the difference is that Ryan Day has an easy ass schedule in the Big Ten.
Year.
Every single year, is healthy headed into the Michigan game and can't get the damn job done because Michigan just beat your ass physically. Like, it wasn't like, oh, they were just more talented no, they just physically punched you in the face, and that's why they won the game over and over and over again. USC just wasn't interested in playing that game. Do you really think if a college football playoff berth was on the line against Tulane, you really think they'd have lost to Tulane? Are you being serious? Come on, guy. Come on.
I don't know. Mike likes to.
Now, I'm here for, hey, losing to Tulane is terrible optics. Hey, losing
I'm
to
here
Tulane,
for that too, yeah.
Is a bad look. Like, hey, okay, fine. Them not wanting to be there is a bad look. Okay, fine. Yeah, I agree. You should try and win every game you play. But they were not trying to win that game. Honestly, they were not interested in even playing the game. They were half-assing it through the entire game. Like,
you can't beat Michigan 8 years in a row and then lose 3 straight years. And granted, this year was a little closer, thankfully, but the previous 2 years were not close.
Mm-hmm.
And the sign stealing thing
but again, in that last game, the sign stealing thing isn't even a conversation.
Which is why I think it was closer.
Yeah.
So I don't even see how it's, yeah. And Mike says again that I don't know what I'm talking about. Okay, Mike. Well, hey, I freely admit Mike Smith is much more intelligent than I am, very clearly. Michigan built momentum off years of cheating. I don't even disagree with that.
Yeah. Why do you think he started cheating?
Yeah.
Because he got his ass beat for how many ever years that was in a row. I think it was 4 seasons or 3 seasons in a row, I think it was.
Yeah. It's amazing that people want to hate on Lincoln Riley and USC because of a loss to Tulane. That's wild to me. Upsets happen all the time. It's the same people who hate Brock Purdy. It's the same people who hate Brock Purdy, which but that's what sports has become, I feel like. Sports has become he hate me. Like your Lincoln Riley will never be good enough at USC. Again, Ryan Day, Jim Harbaugh, okay. Lincoln Riley doesn't coach defense until he does. You're right. He doesn't coach defense, right? But you can't argue that Ryan Day has been plotting, methodically disappointing. Kyle Whittingham at Utah does not, in my opinion, and maybe I freely admit, according to Mike Smith, I'm stupid and I don't know anything about college football. Kyle Whittingham does not value offense. He does not build offensive programs where you can recruit top talent at skill positions, including the quarterback.
Facts.
So you're never going to have one of the top offenses. You're always going to be run heavy. Always. And that's not going to
change.
Hey, Lincoln Riley's 40 years old. It's not like he's in his 70s. You know, he's made significant changes to his coaching staff. Let's see. The facts are the facts.
Yeah.
You know, like it's.
But what you're not going to dispute is that they have the talent to create an elite defense.
Yeah.
They just have to create it.
I can't believe that you actually believe USC losing to Tulane is a bigger, more important loss than Ohio State losing to Michigan. That's incredible. That's incredible. Jimmy Otson, the worst thing you can do is debate Monty on his show through the chat. He reads part of your comment, then goes off for 5 minutes without rebuttal or clarification. Learn from Immaculate. Okay, well, what part of your comment am I not reading? What part of your comment would you like me to read? I mean, I'm happy to read your comment, but I'm not happy to have a conversation about how USC lost to Tulane. So all of a sudden, Lincoln Riley is Ryan Day? Or that somehow Ohio State losing to Michigan 3 years in a row, I would remind you. But Ohio State losing to Michigan is not nearly as bad as USC losing to Tulane in a meaningless bowl game. I'm not here for that. I'm not here for it. And you know what? As far as Immaculate goes, where's Immaculate been? When Immaculate said that, you know, hey, the Pac-12 is going to get $72 million a year. Okay, well, I'm still waiting for that check to cash, excuse me. Where's that been? Where did that go? Like, there, you can say pretty much anything you want on this show. But when you make ridiculous comments like Ohio State losing to Michigan is not as big as USC losing to Tulane in the Cotton Bowl 2 years ago. That loss, USC losing to Tulane, was way bigger than the biggest rivalry in college football. That's crazy.
And you can hide behind the excuse of, hey, we don't read your comment or your full comment or whatever. But the reality of the situation is we read the part that makes the most, you know, that is the most important. We're reading your point. So if we need to read the entirety of your comment so you feel more valued, then we can do that just to make sure we check the box to make sure your full comment got read, even though reading your full comment has nothing to do with you making your point. You made your point. So I don't even know what Immaculate has to do with this.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Well, what even is your point with that? By the way, Jimmy, we read your whole comment. Do you feel better? Do you feel better?
Yeah, I have no idea. I have no idea what Immaculate has to do.
Like,
what does that even mean? OG Gary, again, I'm not saying USC isn't valuable. They are. Here, let me make sure I read the entire comment.
Right, read the whole comment.
They're USC. All I'm saying is for 2024 to be tier 1 in the Big Ten in 2024, show it on the field. But what is now I'm just asking, what does 2024 have to do with being tier 1? We're talking about 2025 and beyond.
If I said, hey, Buddy's 50-12, 11-1 last year.
If they go
ago,
winless, if USC goes winless this year, they're going to be tier 1 in 2025. Like, there's nothing you could do to them to knock them below. Like, it's USC football. They're going to be tier 1. Oh, but wait, I have to read the rest of the comment. Not go 7-5 again. Well, I would remind you that if you look at Lincoln Riley very rarely, if ever, goes 7-5.
Yeah.
So he's had, and again, I'll pull. I'm going to guess that he has been under 10 wins maybe once in his entire career. I think it was 12-2, 12-2, 12-2, 9-2, 10-2, 11-3, 8-5 this past season. So he's had one season where they're 8-5, and that spawns not 7-5 again. That's what this is the thing about this, and just this USC argument. How are we talking about any program based on one season? Does one season define a program? Isn't this why everybody hates on Deion at Colorado?
Mm-hmm.
Does one season define a program? And especially with Lincoln Riley, who had his one season and he's 8-5. In his worst season of his career, he's 8-5.
Yeah, I think it's a little premature to be saying that whatever, go 7-5 again. That sentiment, Gary, I think is what I disagree with. I think that the guy had what I would call a bad season by Lincoln Riley standards last season, but the overall resume paints a picture of an elite head coach who, is an offensive-minded head coach who needs to improve the defensive side of the ball, but he's 50-12 or whatever, 15-11. Like, the guy is, there's no doubt about it. I agree. He's got work to do late in the year. He needs to prove he can win a college football playoff game. He needs to prove that, but that doesn't mean that there's some conversation about them not being tier one. I mean, hell, I would even say, and again, if you're the Ryan Day defender, your argument should be, hey, we're in the college football playoff with regularity compared to USC. Yeah. And my point to that would be, hey, Lincoln's only been there 2 seasons. Like, Ryan Day has been there for 10 years or whatever it's been. Like, dude's been there forever and they still can't get the job done. So that's why I say, get out of here with, we don't read your full comment or all this drama about this nonsense in the comments section. The reality of the situation is, to Mike Smith and everybody else, you're trying to say that Lincoln Riley's loss to Tulane is the same damn thing as Ryan Day in Michigan, and it's not. It's not even close.
No.
It couldn't be further apart. Ryan Day's life was on the line in that game in terms of his job, and he lost the damn game. Lincoln Riley's out here, having a cup of coffee on the sideline, and his team loses by 1 point in a shootout in a Cotton Bowl game that Caleb Williams didn't want anything to do with. Like, I don't
That's
understand
crazy
what
that
saying, dude.
What universe are we living in?
Like, what are we doing?
That,
like, by that logic, again, Gary, I'm not trying to come after you, but by that logic there, Georgia's not a championship caliber program because they didn't get into the college football playoff.
Yeah, it
like,
is
you see what I mean?
Come on, guys. You're making J2H defend Lincoln Riley.
I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. And I'm the guy on the show that said, hey, this guy needs to prove that he can play defense at a high enough level, because the reality is they have a really athletic defense, but they're not system sound. They're not assignment sound,
and
bro.
Part of it is they're on the field too long.
They are.
Because stylistically, his offense can be 3 and out very quickly, but is what it is. Edward Wayner, how about USC losing 2 games in a season against Utah? Lincoln is way overages, just like Harbaugh was until he broke through and won a natty. Remember, Riley lost multiple college football playoff games. Yeah, as we talked about.
And again, that's the point I agree on. He needs to prove that he can win games on the big stage, right? But here's the deal. The other side of that for all the haters today is dude's getting there with regularity. Eventually, he's going to break through. He's 40 years old, man.
Yeah,
this guy's not 70.
Only 40 years. Lincoln Riley, I think, is 40 years old.
He's 50-11 and he's 40 years old. Do you understand what that says about him?
Derek Roche, someone needs to merge the minds of Winningham and Riley. Can you even imagine? Big Daddy Magic. Bo Jackson knows football because he got his degree at Monty University.
Victor's the way.
Okay. Mike Smith, Jake just said the same thing I said, got Monty rolling on this silly argument. No,
I didn't say what you said, dude.
Jake didn't say that USC losing to Tulane in a meaningless bowl game was worse than Ohio State losing to Michigan.
Y'all
3
reading all
years in
this
a row.
cap ass shit.
Like, that's crazy. Brees Lightning, I want to point out, Iowa State beat Lincoln and Baker and Norman. In hindsight, Purdy is 2.5 favorite over Mahomes, so go Clones. Okay. Hey, man. That works. That works. Forrest goes Fabio. Rip Apollo Creed. Yeah. How about Carl Weathers? Chubbs dying over the weekend. Wild. Dakota Tubbs. Insert copyright musical tune. Just another Manic Monday. Exactly.
Right.
Cam Harrison, good morning to you. He says, shout out to Mo Bamba.
Shout out to Mo Bamba.
That's cool. Shout out to Mo Bamba.
Yeah.
I'm so stunned by the logic. How is it
Okay, is a hell of a drug.
Ohio State doesn't need to beat Michigan anymore? How is it that game is? It's not. It's not. If you're just tuning into the show, the biggest stories in sports this morning include the College Football Playoff Management Committee meeting today and tomorrow in Dallas. They will probably, I would assume, two of the biggest topics on the table will be how and how much or how little are they going to pay SMU in the ACC, and what to do with the 5-7 because the Pac-12 is at a very interesting tipping point in that they don't have a seat at the college football playoff table currently. And Michigan and Ohio State and Penn State and their cohorts in the Big Ten, along with the juggernaut that is the SEC, have formed an advisory board to try and create a path forward that may or may not include the college football playoff. Greg Sankey told Yahoo Sports over the weekend that while he is committed to the playoff, they are exploring other options, which is to say, yeah, we're not committed to the playoff.
Right.
Because if you're exploring other options,
right.
The college football playoff has an exclusive hold on college football up until 2025. And then it's all up into the air. And I think you're seeing this as a strategic move by the Big Ten and the SEC because they understand that they do not have full control of the college football playoff committee. And that I think they recognize a 5-7 is mandatory for them to continue to compete financially. I think they want to be able to control as many seats in the college football playoff as possible. And there's only one way for them to do that. That is to get it to a 5-7, because I think they fully understand that if it is 7 at-large bids, you are going to have a far greater opportunity to control the college football playoff and ultimately win the college football playoff if you have 7 at-large spots. So I think that is a huge story. And I think this Caleb Williams in the NFL draft is fascinating. So Caleb Williams has all but said he wants to be drafted by the Commanders. Kliff Kingsbury hired as the Washington Commanders offensive coordinator this weekend. And wouldn't you know, Caleb Williams with a huge shout out on Twitter to Kliff Kingsbury in congratulations, saying, quote unquote, my dog, to Kliff Kingsbury getting that job, which you'll remember Kliff Kingsbury coached Caleb Williams at USC this past year. So it's going to be a very interesting draft situation. And there's now this large conversation about should guys like Caleb Williams be able to control or have a say in who drafts them. Now, obviously, the billionaires in the NFL say no. But if you're the Chicago Bears, Jake, can you in any way, shape, or form consider drafting Caleb Williams?
Well, I think what's interesting is if you're the Bears, you've gone through sort of a back and forth with Caleb Williams in his camp, right? So initially, Caleb Williams was all about, hey, we're not interested in playing for the Bears. Like, I don't want to be drafted, by them. I want to go somewhere where it's competitive and I have a chance to win and all that. And then over the weekend, it comes out that they've kind of dialed that back a little bit. They don't want to be seen as, quote, anti-Bear in the NFL, circles. They don't want to be seen as hating on specific organizations that would draft them, but they are committed to being drafted by someone who cares and who, is going to put a winning product on the field. So they're trying to find that line. And I think all that is to say, yeah, you want to go and play for the Washington Commanders, mainly because you're from Washington, D.C. Obviously, that's where the Commanders are. And Kliff Kingsbury is now there, and it's a nice fit. It's a nice fit. And by the way, ownership is spending a lot of money, so you would think that they would put some tools around him or find a way to beef up that wide receiver room. So to me, should he have a say? I don't necessarily think he should have a say, but the reality is that these guys share their opinions like nobody's business, right? Like Caleb Williams has not shied away from, hey, this is who I want to play for, not play for, what I'm looking for. And through that, he's tried to manipulate the draft a little bit. So should the Bears draft him? If you're going to draft Caleb Williams, you damn well better be ready to stick it to him and force him to play. Like it has to be, hey, we don't care whether you wanted to play here or not. You're going to play here. And if you don't, then they're going to have to figure out what they do about that. But the reality is, I don't think for the Bears it's proper to trade out of the number 1 slot. I would get the best available talent. You kept Eberflus. You got to keep Justin Fields. Go out and get an offensive lineman. Go out and get a skill position guy. Go out and get someone that makes a difference, because I'm a big believer Justin Fields has shown you enough to warrant, going deeper with him, right? To continue down the path. But the problem is you're never going to realize his top end while you have a defensive-minded head coach who should have been fired last season very clearly. So I don't know. Do you draft Caleb Williams? No, probably not right now. But should you, Kevin Warren, have wiped out the entire organization, hired Ben Johnson, drafted Caleb Williams, and hired Kliff Kingsbury? Yeah, you probably should have done that. But since you didn't, what do you like? You can't do this both ways. That's my biggest fear for the Bears.
And I think the other biggest fear for the Bears is you're the Chicago Bears. You have never, not one time in the history of your organization, developed or had the best quarterback in the NFL. In all of those years, the Bears have never had even arguably the best quarterback in the NFL. Jay Cutler, not close. Jim McMahon, not close to the best quarterback in the NFL, right? Like, this team has historically made really good quarterback talent suffer. And it's the great Patrick Mahomes debate with the trade to get Trubisky. And Patrick Mahomes is not this Patrick Mahomes if he was drafted by the Bears.
Nope.
And I think a lot of people forget that. If I'm Caleb Williams, I want nothing to do with the Chicago Bears. And it hurts my heart to say that as a Chicago Bears fan. But I know the realistic outcome of whoever the Bears draft at quarterback, and it won't be good. Because if you put Justin Fields, and everybody points to the Atlanta Falcons, put Justin Fields on the Atlanta Falcons, he's a remarkably better quarterback than he's ever been in Chicago. Because the Bears, for whatever reason, always hire defensive guys that build systems that go against what exactly your quarterback needs to be and what he needs to grow. And then when you do hire an offensive guy, he doesn't build a system around the quarterback because he doesn't like the quarterback.
Yeah.
So you wind up firing him and you go right back to a defensive coordinator who, again, doesn't facilitate what is needed. And that's the best situation for growth at the quarterback position. Yet if we go to Kansas City, if we go to a place where quarterback is thriving, Brock Purdy's not the most talented quarterback in the NFL, but why has he succeeded? He's got one of the better offensive lines in football. He's got a wide array of weapons. He's got Brandon Ayuk catching footballs off of people's face masks. He's got Debo. He's got CMC. He's got Kyle Juszczyk. He's got like all of these Swiss Army knives and an offensive line and a system that is set up to play to his strengths that allows him to run occasionally and throw the deep ball occasionally. Everything you need to succeed with his skill set. If I go to Buffalo, why is Josh Allen not thriving? Because Stephon Diggs is still the focus of that offense. And until he's not, they're not going to thrive.
Going to keep dropping balls that you should catch.
And until you have an offensive head coach, you're not going to thrive. Why was Jim Harbaugh the perfect hire in Los Angeles? Because Justin Herbert is the centerpiece financially and football-wise of that organization.
Facts.
Yet here we have the Chicago Bears, who, if they're smart, will trade that number 1 pick. And if it's to Washington, great. Whoever that might be that wants that number 1 pick, I think the Bears would be smart to ride it out with Justin Fields or do whatever you want there. But if you draft Caleb Williams, it's going to be ugly.
Yes, it is.
I just think he's already a guy, and I think the other thing that I think scares so many people about Caleb Williams, he's already a guy that runs on emotion. And I think when he unplugs, it's not a good thing, because I think we saw a lot of adversity at USC this year, and Caleb didn't thrive. And I think that's probably the most adversity he's ever seen. You're going to have to land him in a place that is going to build an infrastructure to prop him up and make him succeed. And he'll do all the work. He'll be prepared. He's a guy that loves his iPads and loves his preparation and his nail paint. But you better have weapons, and you better have an offensive line. And Kliff Kingsbury is the perfect guy who already knows the personality and already knows the skill set. Washington is likely the best fit for Caleb Williams. But I know unequivocally, unfortunately, Chicago is not. Chicago is not.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to be redundant, but I go back to all these decisions to fire head coaches or not. Huge mistake not firing Matt Eberflus
And I
in
just
Chicago.
don't know what logic they were looking at. Like, what made you say, Kevin Warren, yeah, let's keep Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus? I mean, that seems like a really smart idea.
Well, Poles is, I think Poles is fine. I think their personnel department has been strong. The issue is that you're looking at a like firing Luke Getsy was the right move to make. You should have never hired him in the first place.
Right.
And I think you look at Matt Eberflus and what he did for that Bears defense after he took over play calling. They got exponentially better, but they also added a lot of talent. Right? I think Sweat was one of the better pickups, and then they signed him to an extension. Great. Absolutely great. And a lot of people were surprised that it wasn't Chase Young. Well, Chase Young's got a real prove-it game coming up in the Super Bowl. So the personnel department's done fine. Matt Eberflus is not a head coach. He's an elite defensive coordinator.
Yes.
Who's not a head coach.
Yep.
So, all right, Big Blue Horses. Monty, build a CFL with 40 Tier 1 schools. Two conferences. Does Utah or BYU get let out? Who are the 40? I mean, there's no time to do that.
Yeah, I mean, if you think we're going to sit here and list 40 schools, you got your goddamn
I
mind.
I would have to look at it very closely.
Yeah.
I don't think that's not something you can do on a whim, but I appreciate the request. So the Bears are going to suck for another decade, the Lions fans.
Yes.
Yeah, I think so.
Probably.
I don't have, I think as you guys know now, I don't have delusions of grandeur about my teams. I am not the guy that thinks, my team's awesome when they're not. The Cubs are a great example. The owner of the Chicago Cubs is now part of the investment group for the PGA Tour, but yet won't spend money on the Chicago Cubs. Hey, that's great. The Ricketts invested in the PGA Tour. Cody Bellinger's still a free agent.
Yeah. Thanks for coming.
Right? I'm a realist
playing.
about it. The Bears don't draft, develop, or sign good quarterbacks. They don't. That's who they are. The Blackhawks are coming out of one of the darkest periods in Chicago sports history, right? Like you look at Chelsea Football Club. We have owners with money who don't know how to spend it. I'm a realist about my clubs, man. And the Bears, until the Bears hire the absolute best offensive mind available to run their organization, they will not succeed. Because what do they not also have? They don't have an offensive line. Justin Fields got crushed all year long. And why don't the officials throw flags for him? Why would you? Why would you? You have to earn respect in this league, and the Bears are not respected.
Yeah.
In any way, shape, or form. Jeremy Bolton, good morning, Mayor of Monty Town. Good to see you. Caleb Williams to the Jets. Geez. That report last week, and I think we got derailed by breaking news, but you guys remember that report last week where the Jets were an absolute just atrocity inside their organization this year. And it all centered around Aaron Rodgers.
Who knew? Who the hell knew?
You want to talk about going too far the other way. You hand your entire organization to Aaron Rodgers. He brings in offensive coordinator, as it turns out. He brings in all of his dudes on offense, and then he gets hurt, and then nothing happens. And it just is what it is.
Yeah.
It just is what it is.
I mean, but again, like I don't know why anyone's surprised, dude. Aaron Rodgers, he is who we thought he was, right? And it just, again, another organization that needs to make a decision on a young quarterback. Cut
Which way do you go?
Or keep him and try to develop him. What are you gonna do? Because I'd have to look at their situation, but I'm guessing they have some assets that they could burn to move up in the draft for Caleb Williams, but I don't know that they would want to do that.
Potentially.
Yeah.
Capazzo, good to see you. The Jets have a longer track record of drafting quarterbacks and ruining them than the Bears. They do.
Well, that's
Thankfully.
Yeah.
Brandon Butler, Poles needs to be allowed to undo everything Pace has done. That's going to take a minute. That offensive line is horrendous. And the hard part is you leave this organization, David Montgomery, and you're a really important part of a team in Detroit that, you look at, any of the guys on defense.
Yeah.
You overpaid Khalil Mack. I think we all knew that at the time.
No question.
Really important player for the LA Chargers. Like, you look at the guys who leave Chicago, and they generally do pretty well. Trubisky aside, but he was probably not an NFL player anyway.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm probably biased about it. Delaric, Bears should take Harrison Jr. if they don't get a haul of picks for number one, at least 3 number ones. You've got to, I don't know what you do. Was DJ Moore properly utilized this past year by the Bears?
Probably not to the highest level, right? If you're going to talk about utilizing offensive talent, there's no way you can say they did it to the best of their abilities, right? To the absolute highest level, because you've got, again, a defensive-minded head coach who, it's no question their offense is a mess.
Yeah, I look at and I just look at the other quarterbacks. Like, is Drake May a guy that you want as your quarterback? I think he does absolutely nothing for me.
It's a huge risk.
I think Jaden Daniels is a guy that I just don't know what does he project to. A project is what he projects to. Marvin Harrison.
Go and get him.
He's probably your best wide receiver, although Malik Neighbors is going to make a push for that.
Yep.
Right? I think Roma Dunze has to make a push for that. But if I'm a Chicago Bears fan, I want Joe Alt. The offensive lineman from Notre Dame. I think if you're going to get multiple picks in the first round, he's probably not going to last past 10, but that's a guy that I want. It is, or Fashanu from Penn State, but I think he's probably a top 12 guy.
Yeah.
I would think. But I don't know what you do. Like, I think there are just so many jackpots in this draft, meaning you're going to be in trouble if you pick free Harbaugh from Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he is somebody that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to wind up drafting as a guy that could replace Baker. And does he project to be a starting quarterback in the NFL?
I don't think so. No, how?
Yeah, I don't think so either. I honestly don't know how that happens.
Yeah, I don't know how you can say that free Harbaugh projects as a starting, no doubt about it, franchise guy.
Yeah, I just assume the Bears will trade the number 1 pick.
Yeah.
I think obviously they'll get the number 2. And then I wonder what they do there. Because I would think you would trade down further, because I would think you would want to stay in the top 5, which is probably going to give you Marvin Harrison Jr.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because if you project it now, if you trade number 2 with Washington, okay, they're going to draft a quarterback, and then you're probably going to trade that pick out, I would think, again, because I think the Giants are not married to Daniel Jones, even though they paid him. I could see them trading up. I could absolutely see the Atlanta Falcons trading up.
Yeah.
Like, there's players at number 2, right? But if you get number 3, the New England Patriots are taking a quarterback. How do you not take a quarterback?
You need one desperately.
If you're the Arizona Cardinals, how do you not take the best available wide receiver talent? I think you have to.
See how these situations are just very straightforward. Hey, man, you need this. The Bears need offensive line help. Cardinals need wide receiver help. Like, it's very straightforward.
I look at like number 5 is the Chargers. You're taking the best offensive weapon available. And my guess would be that's a Brock Bowers landing spot, a Malik Neighbors landing spot.
Yeah.
But you can just project this down all the way. The Bears are going to wind up, I would guess, trading out and making a huge mistake with that pick again.
Yeah.
I would guess. Mike Smith, who's been a member of the show for 6 months.
All right. Okay, here we go.
Red ass Monday, but still love the show. Thanks, Mike. That's great. That's great. Big Daddy Magic. The Buffalo Bills will trade Stephon Diggs for the number 1 pick in the draft and a 3rd round pick. Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think he brings that.
Yeah.
I don't think he brings that. K. Nurin, the Jets are just being the Jets. Hopefully Zach can get out and maybe KC or the Rams. I think Zach Wilson has been an incredible bust. Now, the Jets don't, again, and I don't think anybody's arguing this, the Jets don't develop quarterbacks.
No.
They don't. They don't develop quarterbacks at all. But that's just, my opinion.
Yeah.
All right. Can we talk about terrible baby names or AI first?
Baby names.
All right. Did you guys see this AI story?
Mm-hmm.
You were going AI first? Okay, good.
Sure.
Are you a believer in AI?
I'm a believer that it's dangerous. I think it can be helpful. Obviously, and we've heard about ChatGPT for, 2 years now. Been beat over the head with it, but I think it's dangerous, man. I think that it's everything from self-driving cars to task management. Like, there's a bunch of different ways you can use it, but I don't love this story, man. It's scary.
So there was a study done that gave an AI program complete control to develop itself.
Mm-hmm.
They let it choose its own path, and it went rogue. And it was to the point where they had trouble controlling the program.
Mm-hmm.
Like, AI left to its own devices or those looking to do damage, I think is incredibly dangerous. I don't know what you do with it because it's everywhere from fast food. Like, there's McDonald's and Taco Bells that are completely run on AI now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. It's menus. Like, I tried to call UPS last week. Forget about it. Right. Phone menus, like
everything, dude.
Programming stock trades,
Everything.
Algorithms, you name it. AI is everywhere.
Yeah. I think you start getting in trouble when you ask it to run itself. That's the thing. You get in trouble when you're like, hey, yeah, you have the freedom to do whatever you want.
It started building defenses so it could not be turned off.
Right.
It started building itself these, and I don't even know what you call them technically, but it essentially put up roadblocks for those that were running the study so that those running the study could not control it any longer.
Which is just wild. I mean, that's Skynet material.
And then you hear about these chatbots that these companies are using that are doing the exact same thing.
Uh-huh.
Companies give their chatbot AI or AI chatbots, I guess it is, the parameters to work in and then allow them to respond to live customer comments. A AI customer service chatbot for an international delivery service used profanity, told a joke, and wrote poetry about how useless it was, and criticized the company as, quote, the worst delivery firm in the world after prompting by a frustrated customer.
Uh-huh.
The customer posted screenshots of the chat conversation on Twitter. The same day the customer said the comment exchange occurred, his post has gotten over 1.3 million views and over 20,000 likes.
It's the problem, dude. And we haven't even gotten to voiceovers and people saying things they never said. And it's dangerous. I'm telling you.
When the chatbot refused to connect the customer to a live rep, the customer decided to play around with the bot and asked it to tell him a joke. The joke said, what do you call a fish with no eyes? It said FSH. Just take the I out of fish because it has no eyes.
See what he did there?
Right? This is wild to me.
Yeah.
What's the worst case scenario? Because AI flies planes.
Mm-hmm.
AI drops bombs. Like military usage to me is the most dangerous thing.
It is. It's very dangerous. You know, whether it goes sideways or works or like I just think it's completely uncontrollable. If you cut AI loose, it will do things you never saw coming. And that's what I think we can't get into, man. We cannot get into that because once we have no ability to stop it, it's over.
The number one AI application is education. It says automation to aid educators creating smart content, everything from voice assistants to writing your children's lesson plans.
Yeah. I mean, and that's fine. I mean, basic tasks like that are fine, but I don't know, this chatbot stuff, like, you know, the voiceover.
What about
stuff,
navigation? What about stuff like Tesla?
No, I think that's terrible. We all see the stories about how Teslas crash into each other and don't do what they're supposed to do.
How about this Tesla last week that just stopped on a freeway? Just was driving down the freeway in a tunnel, went to make a lane change, and then just locked up and stopped and caused an 8-car accident.
Terrible.
Like,
what are we doing?
Yeah. So in the comment section, do you guys trust AI?
I definitely do not. I think it's dangerous. I think it's asking for trouble.
Derek Roche, I love AI. Eric Wasikowski, y'all see Taylor Swift AI?
Yeah.
Okay. Mike Smith. So you're saying that AI pretty much lived up to the sci-fi movies that led to a post-apocalyptic world? Pretty much.
Pretty much.
That's not good.
Yeah.
Derek Roche, we're teaching AI to be hostile.
Mm-hmm.
I don't disagree. A couple more, then we got to get to bad baby names. Monty is the fourth industrial revolution. I am.
Okay.
Mr. Downtown, man, I just woke up and y'all been going for 2 hours already. What did I miss? Ask Mike Smith. He'll tell you.
Yeah.
What you missed. What you didn't miss is the top 10 worst baby names ever. Now, I'm warning you about this list because this is from the Mirror in the UK. And this is some salty stuff. Mia is the number one worst name of all time because it means missing in action. Number 2, and I'm asking you to put your hands at 10 and 2 if you're driving, because this one's tough. Why do you think Lana, Lana, is the second worst name of all time? Because if you spell it backwards, it means, I'm not even going to say it on the show. I've never looked at a woman named Lana as I look at her today, because I never thought of that. Here are the top 5 worst names of all time. 1, Mia. 2, Lana. Fanny is the third worst name all time according to the Mirror. 4 is Grace, because there are very few accents that can say Grace gracefully. Amelia, as one mom finds, quote, that me is so whiny. Although I will say all the Amelias I know are a pain in the ass. That is one of the worst names ever. How much damage do we do? And Jake's going to talk about this in a second. How much damage do we do naming our kids? Because Jake, the naming of Jake was pretty combative. I am the one that picked out his name, Jacob Tyler. That's his middle name is Tyler. But I did not want, Jake's mother wanted like crazy names. She wanted like different names, odd name. I was like, no, we're going with Jacob Tyler. Who decides the name in your family? Especially for those of you that have kids already. This is one question that I am fascinated by, because I think it's very interesting that when you look at naming of kids, I don't think we put that much thought into it. I think we use family names all the time, juniors, the thirds. I think it's just, I don't think we put that much thought into it. I actually put a ton of thought into Jake's name. And I'm curious, how much thought, how much control do you need? Do you like your name? Because this is another trend that I think a lot of people are seeing. One of the biggest trends in North America is people changing their legal birth names because they do not like them. One of the most uncomfortable names, according to the Mirror, again, is the name Sheridan, which is a name that's listed as unisex. But did you know that the name Sheridan is one of the most often legally changed names in North America? What's wrong with the name Sheridan? That's crazy. The other names that are often changed, Mercedes. Now, again, I know a lot of people name their kids Mercedes. I know in my life, I think I've met 2 or 3 Lexuses. Like, it's weird to me. Do you name your kids after cars? Like Chevy, Tesla? Come on, stop. Mercedes is just that name. What about the name Graham? One of the most changed names in North America is the name Graham. So how often do you change your name? I would never change my name. And I have a difficult name to pronounce. And I would not change my name.
Right.
Are you happy with your name?
I'm happy it's a more traditional name. I mean, I'm not trying to have like, you remember 3 years ago, Nevaeh was like
huge.
Like just everybody named their kid Nevaeh because it's heaven backwards. Like, yeah, I mean, I like my name. Yeah, it's simple, does the job.
Here are the top 100 girls' names for 2023. I'll read you the top 10 from 10 to 1.
Right.
Willow.
Okay.
God, I hate that name.
Yeah.
Grace. Sophia. I like Sophia.
Sophia's classy.
Ivy. Freya.
Freya? Like you're fraying jeans?
You named your kid Freya. No. Ava. Lily. Isla. Amelia's number 2. And again, Amelia is one of the worst baby names, according to the Mirror. And Olivia is number 1.
Well, everybody likes Olivia. Everybody. Classy, right? Or no?
I don't know.
I don't mind Olivia.
All right. How about for boys?
Yeah.
Because I think boys' names are far more difficult. Number 10, Jack.
Okay.
Freddie.
Okay.
Luca. George. Arthur. Oliver. Number 4 is Leo. Number 3 is Theo. Different than Leo.
Right.
Number 2 is Noah. And number 1 is Muhammad. M-U-H. Muhammad.
Okay.
Is number 1 because Mohammed, M-O-H, is 46th. Mohammed, M-O-H-A-M-M-A-D, is number 49. So several.
I mean, there's those. I feel like the boys' names.
They're simple. They're straightforward.
They're just simple, straightforward, like, just classic. Yeah. Freddie.
Q Sam, Kool-Aid McKinstry. Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Lopes fan gave my son's first name means blessed little one, and we chose it for that reason. Okay.
See, that's cool.
You have a reason behind it. We had a boy and decided to keep Robert generation going, so he is the 4th generation Robert. Okay. Drew Dozer, Mason Gage, and Logan.
Okay.
I don't hate that.
Not bad.
Marcus Emmert, hey, go over here, Toyota. Exactly. Mercedes is one of the worst names.
Why would you name your kid Mercedes?
Giggity, I've met a couple of Benz and Bentley kids. You named your kid Bentley? That's brutal. Absolutely brutal. Shouty says, good morning. Good morning to you. Capazzo, I always got to give the middle name, and I got to spell my second oldest first name. Okay. Aaron Wilson gifted a Monty Show membership.
Okay.
Thank you, Aaron. UW fan Jim, man, I forgot about morning shows. They can be testy. Before we learn the gender of our kids, we decided that she would name our first daughter and I would name our first son, but we would have absolute veto power over our spouse's choice. So what good is that?
Isn't that the same thing as just choosing together?
I think it is. I could be wrong. No, OG Gary, I'm not. Drew Dozer. Those names sound like old lady names. There's a lot of old lady names.
Traditional.
A lot
OG.
of them. A lot of them.
Yeah.
A lot. Brandon Butler. I have thought about changing my first name, but because of politics the last few years, getting Let's Go Brandon for the wrong reasons. Okay. Derek Roche. The movie Willow was pretty good.
Okay.
Kaner, and a lot of kids got named Jordan after Michael Jordan. I have a son who loves his name. Okay. That's cool. Jimmy Otson, is Jake ever going to change his last name from Two Holes? There you go.
Yeah, it's a consideration.
I have an adopted niece named Olivia. I don't have a problem with Olivia.
Olivia's just classy, dude.
It's Olivia Benson.
Yeah.
You know. It just, you know. I know a Mara Jade and a Colton Even and a Piper.
A Piper.
Colton Even? Is that more like Colton? Couldn't. What is wrong? What is wrong with people? What is wrong with people? Delaric. Orange Jello was a name my bud at a hospital told me about. His sister was Lime Jello. I don't believe it.
Yeah.
I don't believe it.
I don't believe that either.
I don't believe it at all.
Yeah, that's
no.
That's some of that nonsense.
Drew Dozer. All my boys' middle names are family names. Douglas, Andrew, and Hughes. Okay, that makes sense.
Nice.
That makes sense. Giggity. I wanted to change my name after that stupid ass Hump Day commercial from Geico. Okay. My daughter's name is the combined middle names Ray for my wife and Lee for me. Therefore, Rayleigh. Okay. Giggity. Mike. Guess what day it is? Oh, that would be terrible. Drew Dozer. Cute name. Joe. Okay. Caruso sucks McCluskey.
Here we go. We're doing one show, and all of a sudden you think you can change your name.
And the mayor's already back to ripping the best of the best. I'm loving the show coming back to mornings. Mayor's time. That's right.
Yeah.
OG Gary. I hate my legal name, so I go by Gary. Oh, okay. I got you. I know a ton of people who do that. Giggity. Every goddamn week. Mike.
I don't regret those decisions.
Hey, Mike, what day is it?
You know.
Aaron Wilson. I went to high school with twin girls named Summer and Winter. Oh,
okay,
my God.
Get the hell out of here with that, dude.
Oh, my God. That would be terrible.
Summer and Winter?
Dakota, my wife wants to name our first son Philip. I told her with my last name, we can't do that. Philip Tubbs. Because he fills up tubs.
Right. See what he did there?
Ain't no way I'm having a son named Philip Tubbs. Think about it. I'm with you. Jimmy, I named our son Isaiah, but if I wanted to make him Bebop, my son would have vetoed it.
Okay.
I don't think you want to name him Bebop. I mean, you know. Mercedes was a person's name first, then named the car after her. Well, now it's a car, and they named the girl after the.
Yeah.
Is Mercedes exclusively a girl's name? I think it pretty much is, isn't it?
I guess.
You know. Eric Wasikowski. I like my name because it's too difficult for most people to avoid me.
Okay.
Eric? Okay. My wife would have vetoed it. Jimmy said, yes, I would agree with that. Mr. Downtown, Freya after 3 Norse god. I have no idea. Why would Freya isn't that you know who I am? Isn't that a dog name? We know somebody that named their dog Freya.
Maybe.
That's weird to me.
Yeah.
Mike Chase. I'm always correcting people on saying my name. It's Mikkel. But so I could just go by Mike so it does not get slaughtered every time.
Yeah.
That would be tough.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about the name Steve Belichick? Steve's a pretty interesting name.
Yeah.
We covered that earlier, but you're welcome here. My half-sisters' names are Summer and Autumn. My dad and stepmom have no imagination. Drew Dozer, Dick Tron Tarley.
Okay.
Dick on Tarly. Okay. I can't read. Well, they said earlier, I don't read entire comments.
Yeah.
At all.
Okay.
I don't.
Okay.
There you go. The
All
Monty Show, presented by our good friends at The Advocates, theadvocates.com. Welcome back to the mornings. Tomorrow, maybe we'll be better. Probably not.
Stay hard.
I mean, it's just Jimmy will show up tomorrow and I'll read like one line of it. Now, Jimmy, every time you read a comment or write a comment, I'm just going to read one line.
One line.
And,
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for coming.
Until tomorrow, say goodbye, Jake.
Goodbye, Jake.